To nourish our bodies, give everyone safety in their travel. Amen.
I was an imagery analyst and a screener. My job was to watch what's happening in the video, the drones, the live video, of course, and identify everything. Another remote duty station, you'd have the pilot, of course, who's flying the actual aircraft, and the sensor operator who is moving the camera around. They were the ones that actually push the button. I do not push the button. I just identify what necessitates a button pushing. We can't just bomb someone and fly away. We have to follow through. The bomb hit and wait for it to cool down a little bit, and then you can see like the body parts. You can identify like that could be the lower half of his body, and that could be a leg. And then sometimes you'll stick around and watch family come and get them, or like pick up the parts and put their family member in a blanket. And a couple people hold onto a corner of the blanket and carry them back to their compound. According to my mental health records, I was high risk for suicide because of the way I acted about my job. My psychologist called my first sergeant and he recommended that I be possibly moved to anything that wasn't involving watching people die all the time. And the first sergeant said that our team was undermanned and that they absolutely needed me to work mission, so he would look into it, but never returned my psychologist's phone calls, never gave him any indications that I was going to be moved to a better job, and I obviously wasn't. I stayed doing that job until the last possible moment when they had to let me out process because I was actually getting out of the military. So I guess that's the cost of a human life, because the fact that I was on a suicide watch list and they still wouldn't allow me to do something else that might help me a little bit obviously didn't matter to the military, and that shows how much the Air Force cares about its intelligence troops.
Look down the bottom there. There's ice on the steps, too. You could tell she'd have a stressful day if she'd call me up and she'd be crying or she'd be upset, but then she couldn't talk about it. And then when you ask her, well, can you talk to anybody else about it? Well, no, we're not supposed to talk to anybody. So she was having more and more issues each day that things went on. A mom knows these things, and then when you hear your daughter talking to you on the phone and you can tell that she's in trouble, just by the emotion and the inflection and the stress that you can hear in her voice, I knew she was in trouble. And the only thing I could do is just stay in touch with her on a daily basis so she felt like she had someone there. Because I have a feeling if somebody was there for her, she wouldn't be here right now. And her friends, a lot of them were in the same boat she was. All drinking, all carrying on, trying to forget the pain.
I'm just scared. I'm always scared. All of us little kids were just scared to go outside.
Now I would like to play a clip of President Obama addressing U.S. drone warfare at National Defense University in Washington, D.C.
And before any strike is taken, there must be near certainty that no civilians will be killed or injured. The highest standard we can set. Yes, the conflict with Al-Qaeda, like all armed conflict, invites tragedy. But by narrowly targeting our action against those who want to kill us and not the people they hide among, we are choosing the course of action least likely to result in the loss of innocent life.
When the president gets up in front of the nation and says that they're doing everything they can to ensure that there is near certainty that there will be no civilians killed. He is saying that because he can't say otherwise. Because any time an action is taken to finish a target, there is a certain amount of guesswork in that action, because it's only in the aftermath of any kind of ordnance being dropped that you know just how much actual damage was done. And oftentimes the intelligence community is reliant, the Joint Special Operations Command, the CIA included, is reliant on intelligence coming afterwards that confirms that who they were targeting was killed in that strike, or that they weren't killed in that strike.
We all know people die in war. We all know that. If we don't, we're deluded. The fact of the matter is that these things, these devices, can go pretty much unimpeded anywhere in the world and blow crap up. And there's no single governing body about how they're used. And that is something that will promote war, not deter it. The people that really get the impact, aside from the people at the distant end who are getting hit by these weapons, are all these new recruits that are coming in. And, you know, the people that are being affected are America's children. People die, things get destroyed, and people who are aged 18 to 24 sit and watch it. How can anyone not find that disturbing?
Hearing politicians speak about drones being precision weapons, being able to make surgical strikes, to me it's completely ridiculous. It's completely ludicrous to even make those statements. It's as flawed as it can be with people operating it from across the world. If they really think they can send a bomb through a window of a compound and hit one militant, then why are we seeing so many civilians dying of collateral damage? I'd like to ask those politicians, have they not been notified of that? Do they not know what's going on in their own war that they're controlling?
A former U.S. drone operator and analyst has slammed American and British militaries for fabricating faulty information on the civilian deaths in the U.S.-led drone war worldwide. Heather Linebaugh has questioned the accuracy of the information collected by the drones, saying the videos provided are not clear enough to detect militants from civilians. The former American analyst also said the drones in the U.S.-led wars are not used as protection, but rather as a weapon.
This is a perfect example of what it would look like, unaltered. This is probably the best you'll get on a good day. It's why it's so difficult to make that choice. I'd say there's at least two possible children. And then one of them runs away. trying to just get people to change how they view things, and they're like, policymakers aren't listening, policymakers don't care. It's not going to change anything. So I'm going to put myself out there, risk being put on some kind of FBI watch list or something for just saying that, yeah, the drone program makes people feel bad. Like, I'm basically saying the drone program can give you post-traumatic stress disorder. That shouldn't be a surprise. And like, for me to just say something like that and then have people say, A, it's not gonna make a change, B, you're gonna be the next Edward Snowden. It's just, it pisses me off. Like, and it makes me not even wanna try, because if I'm gonna get all this awful, horrifying attention from like the government and stuff, like, what's the point? Like, if someone comes in my house and puts a bag over my head and hauls me away, then what was the point of anything I did? Like, am I really changing people's minds? Or are people just gonna share it on Facebook and then move along? I'm spending all this time doing all this stuff, and it could be for absolutely nothing. Like, I could be living a normal life, spending time with friends, spending time with family, and like, I'm spending all this time for this thing that I don't know if anybody's even gonna care about. And I don't know if anybody's gonna be like, oh, well, let's really care about these soldiers in the drone program, because according to the left, we're all a bunch of baby killers. And according to the right, we shouldn't be having any problems because we're not walking around in Afghanistan.
Exposed Facts is dedicated to supporting whistleblowers, whistleblowing, and independent journalism. Our next speaker, Jessalyn Radek, is a director of National Security and Human Rights Program at the Government Accountability Project. As an attorney, she's represented many whistleblowers, and I'll mention just a few of them: Edward Snowden, Thomas Drake, and John Kiriakou. So, Jessalyn Radek.
I represent 7 people investigated, charged, or prosecuted under the Draconian Espionage Act. Espionage Act prosecutions occur largely in secret and have been brutal. I hope that will change. I hope also that whistleblower protection will be extended to protect people in the national security and intelligence arenas who have made all of the bombshell disclosures about war crimes, about torture, about secret surveillance that you've heard about over the past decade.
When the Guardian thing first happened, I was so scared because everybody started calling me a whistleblower and saying, like, this is another Edward Snowden. I didn't think I mentioned anything classified, but then they started saying, like, she mentioned capabilities.
Well, most whistleblowers are not blowing the whistle on classified, and if they do have access to classified information, they're able to blow the whistle on things without ever getting into the classified. And what you're disclosing that hasn't been out there is the ill effect and the horrible negative effect that this has had on the actual people doing the work, and on the innocent people being blown up, and the shaky legal reasoning. I mean, all 3 of these are the perfect storm of this cluster that we call the drone program.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
America does not take strikes to punish individuals. We act against terrorists who pose a continuing and imminent threat to the American people. And when there are no other governments capable of effectively addressing the threat.
In a major policy address on Thursday, President Obama defended the secret overseas drone war, but said the United States cannot continue